I want to tell you guys a little story about yesterday. I went to get fuel and I was sitting there. The gas station was just packed and I was standing there and I could smell hot brakes, and I thought, man, someone's got a hot brake. You know that smell? It's just like a hot clutch. You can't mistake it once you know it. So the gas station kind of emptied out while I was there, and I could still smell it, and I thought, uh-oh, it must be me. So I went around, touched all my rims, and sure enough, my right front was the culprit. So I want to get it jacked up. I'll give it a spin, and then we'll take my giant nuts off, and we'll have a look. Alright, I got the tire jacked in the air, and I just wanted to give it a spin, which I already did. And it's really not that bad. The caliper definitely isn't seized, but it is dragging. So there's a chance that the pins could just be seized, poorly lubricated, but it's more than likely the caliper. It could also be the flex line. Chances are I'm just going to replace both the caliper and the flex line to be safe, because I don't know the history of this truck. I bought it used. We'll go ahead and get the tire off now. I've got the tire off here. Just about ready to take the pins out of the caliper. These are 17 mil or 11/16, whatever you want to use. I'll spin the pins out now and see how well they're lubricated. Here they are, just a pair of shorties. Alright, so I'm going to go in the hole here with this giant screwdriver, see if I can release some pressure off the caliper so I can remove it. I slid my caliper off. We're going to do a test now just to determine whether it's the caliper or the flex line, but like I said, I'm probably just going to replace both. Luckily there's lots of pad left there, so no damage was done to that, and I didn't feel a warp in the rotor. As far as testing your caliper to see whether it's the caliper or the flex line, I can't really do that in this case because my pistons actually move fairly freely. So I'm pretty certain I just have a lazy caliper that's dragging. You can see I can push that in and the other one moves out. I go over here, I'll do the same. I'll push this one and the opposite one moves out. But if you were in the case where you could not push your piston in, to test whether it's a flex line, it's holding it or not, you would open your bleeder screw on the caliper and then push your piston in. If the piston still doesn't go in, it's seized. If the piston goes in, you have a bad flex line. But anyway, I'm fairly certain it's just a lazy caliper because I'm pushing fluid both ways, no problem. But like I said, I don't know the history. This could be the original flex line. And everything looks really good, so I shouldn't have a problem taking the flex line apart, brake line out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I got to get the caliper off this bracket, and I'm just going to bring this into town with me so I don't have to bring the core back and make 2 trips. So we'll go ahead and get that done now. The bolts on the back of the caliper bracket here are 24 mil. That's what I'm using. I'm not even sure what that'd be in imperial. Be close to an inch. Maybe 15/16 might work, but 24 is pretty tight, and that's what we're going to use. Got it on a wobbly, going to use the impact, so I probably don't have the strength to bust those loose. Brackets off. Last thing to do to get the caliper off is to remove the flex line. These bolts vary in size, so on this caliper it's a 15 mil. I've squeezed my flex line with a pair of vice grips. What that's going to do is just stop the fluid from continually leaking out once I remove the flex line. I'm confident in doing this because I'm replacing the flex line. Sometimes when I'm only replacing the caliper, I still pinch off the flex line with a pair of vice grips. However, it's not the greatest thing to do because you could collapse the interior of the flex line and then you'll have a problem after you put a new caliper on. Use this trick at your own risk. But if you're going to do it that way and not replacing the flex line, then just squeeze it enough to stop the fluid. Don't squeeze it like your life depends on it, and you should be okay. But again, user beware. So let's get this bolt out. I'm just going to put this bolt back in because the new caliper should come with one, and I will check that before I get it. But this will just stop the fluid from leaking out. So here's our used caliper assembly core that we need to take back. I'm sure they're going to ask for a core. They typically always do. I'll just put in the caliper bolts because we're going to get new ones anyway. And that's it. Through the power of editing, I'll be back with a new caliper. And we're back. Got our new caliper here, the bracket, which I put the clips on already. I've got it set up here on the old workbench. It's got anti-seize in the saddles for the pads, just to keep them sliding. The pins are greased pretty good. I'll add a bit myself, a little bit extra once I get that mounted. But the first thing we're going to do is put the pads back in the bracket here, and then we'll mount it on the truck. Okay, we got our pads in place. I'm just going to put a little bit of disc brake quiet on the back. This will help them from squealing, rattling. Helps bond it to the caliper. We got our giant caliper bolts back in. Now we're going to tighten them up. And there's two. Now we're going to go ahead and mount our caliper. Okay, that's done. This caliper seated in there. Now we'll tighten up our caliper bolts. One and two. Calipers installed. This nut on the brake line is a 12 mil, and I don't have a 12 mil line wrench. I have no metric line wrenches, so we're just going to unfortunately try an open end, and hopefully we can crack it loose. Oh, it worked. Awesome. Now we have to go ahead, unclip our flex line from ABS sensor. Okay, that line's done. On the back of the flex line there's a bracket here, and it looks like it's probably a 13 mil bolt. We're going to try and get that out. Got my 3/8 impact gun and hope for the best. We got lucky there. Usually these bolts break, so it's going to go back in with some anti-seize. Next thing we want to do on this flex line is remove this retaining clip. It's starting to move. There it comes. Alright. Retaining clips out. Alright, so here's our new flex line. It's kind of shaped like a hexagon, like the head of a bolt. So when it goes through here, it'll hold it in place. So you can tighten the nut back down inside it. So we'll get that installed. Just like that. It actually came with a new bracket in case this one was screwed up or your flex line was really jammed in there. You just have to push these clips in to get them started and then tap them in the rest of the way. Installed. Now we want to hook our brake line up now. And the reason why I like to do this first is because the fluid will start to travel through the flex line and it'll bleed most of the air out, which we have to do anyway. Saves a bit of bleeding. Alright, that's probably as tight as I can get it with an open end wrench. We got to hook up our bracket that we took off earlier. Here's the bolt I mentioned that I put anti-seize on. Zip it up. Now we'll reconnect our ABS sensor. It clips to the flex line to hold it in place. It's got multiple clips. Now we've got brake fluid dripping out of our flex line, so it's good to go. So now when it comes time to hooking up your flex line, you want to put one of your copper washers on the nut first, and the other one's going to go on the other side of your flex line. So you can just put your bolt through, put your copper washer on the other side, and then start threading it into the caliper. I'm going to go ahead and put a ratchet on it. And this one you want to get a pretty good squeeze on. Make sure you squish those copper washers pretty good. And that's that. A couple more ABS sensor clips to hook up here. And we're done. New flex line into the new caliper. It's tight. All that's left now is to bleed it. So I've been gravity bleeding this thing now. Essentially gravity bleeding is just opening up the bleeder screw here and just naturally letting the pressure of the fluid above push it through. It took about 20 minutes before it started dripping out. So now what I'm going to do is grab another person. I'm going to have them go inside, pump it up, and I'll bleed it that way. And I like to do it that way because at the same time when it's pressurized I can check everything for leaks. Hold it down. Pump it up, hold it down. Pump it up, hold it down. Well, oh, there's a little bit of air. Pump it up. Hold it down. Well, no air out of that one. Pump it up. Hold it down. I don't see any leaks, so I think it's good to go. So we're done. Just going to throw the tire back on, torque it up. Hopefully I explained this good enough for you guys. I've done so many. Sometimes I just forget what I'm doing. I don't even pay attention. But at the end of the day, if it keeps you out of the garage, saves you a couple $100, then my job here is done. Thanks a lot for watching the video, guys. We'll see you in the next repair.